Okay, so welcome, and today we're going to do an example, and we're going to use everything that we know up to this point to help us factor this polynomial. Okay, in this case we're going to deal with complex zeros. Okay, so in this problem here we have, it says find all zeros of this polynomial function given that we know that I minus, or 1 minus I is a 0. Okay. So, if that's the case, then we can use the fact that it's a complex number and that also 1 plus I must also be a 0. Okay? So that means 1 minus I and 1 plus I are zeros. Okay? So now, that'll give us two of the factors. But we need to figure out what the last factor is. Okay? So we got two zeros, but we still need to find the other, zeros because it looks like, so the degree is 4, right? So we should have two other zeros. Okay, so how are we going to do this? Well, we're going to have to use synthetic division to figure out what the leftover quotient is going to be once we factor these two out. Okay, so we know what the factors of these have to be. So we know two of the factors, right? So this leads us to know that one factor is going to be 1, or x minus this and x minus that. Okay? So we need to figure out what the other zeros are. Okay? And the only thing we need to do for this one is just synthetic division. They're not asking us to write it out in factored form, right? All they want us to do is find all the zeros. So we've got two zeros already by using conjugate pairs. Well, let's figure out what the other ones are. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use this one and use synthetic division. So this is my k value. So it's going to be 1 minus I. And then the coefficients are going to be 1, negative 7, 18, negative 22, and 12. And there's no missing terms, so we don't need any zeros here. And so I'm going to write my line, and now I'm going to start the synthetic division part. And so here's the algorithm. Now here, this times this is going to give me 1 minus I here. Negative 7 plus 1 is going to give me a negative 6 minus I. Now, I've got this times this, so I'm going to have to go over and do some scratch work. So it's 1 minus I times negative 6 minus I. And so this is going to give me a negative 6. And then it's going to give me a minus I. And it's going to give me a plus 6I. And then it's going to give me a plus I squared. And so this is going to give me a negative 6 plus 5I minus 1, which gives me minus 7 plus 5I. Okay, and so I'm going to put minus 7, oops, let me put it there, minus 7 plus 5I. Okay, now make sure you check that that's correct. Okay, so again, make sure you know how to do this and make sure that you get the correct answer. Do this on your own, okay? Follow along, but make sure you go back and do this on your own. See if you can do it without looking at the solution. So now I'm going to add these. Well, 18 plus negative 7, right? This is a real number, so I'm going to add the real numbers. So this is going to give me 11. So it's going to be 11 plus 5I. Okay, so now I'm going to do the same thing again. So now I'm going to do my scratch work off to the side. And so I'm going to do 1 minus I times 11 plus 5I. And so I'm going to do, I'll get 11 plus 5I. And then I'm going to get negative 11I minus 5I squared. And so what I'm going to get, I'm going to get 11, and this is going to give me a minus 6I. And this is going to give me a plus 5. And so this is going to give me 16 minus 6i. And so I'm going to put 16 minus 6i here. Okay, and that's, again, make sure you see where that comes from. Okay? Okay, so now I'm going to add down again. So I add down, so the negative 22 plus the 16, which is going to give me what? It's going to give me a negative 6 minus 6i. Now, since I know this is a 0, I should get 12 here. Okay? Or negative 12, rather. Okay, if I didn't make any mistakes, then I should get a negative 12 here, and I should get 0. So let's see what happens. So now I'm going to do 1 minus I times negative 6 minus 6i. And so I'm going to get negative 6 minus 6i again by distributing the 1. And then I'm going to get plus 6i. And I'm going to get plus 6i squared. Well, look at here. This minus 6i plus 6i cancels. I get negative 6 minus 6, which equals negative 12. And so I get my negative 12, and I get 0, which is exactly what I should get. Okay? Now, I have my polynomial, the coefficients of my polynomial. Okay, so now I'm going to use this one. So now I'm going to use I, or 1 plus I. And now I'm going to write these down as my coefficients. So it's going to be negative 6 minus I, 11 plus 5I, and minus 6 minus 6I. And so now I'm going to see what I get from here. Okay, so now I'm going to drop down negative 6 minus I, and now I'm going to do my scratch work over here. So 1 plus I times negative 6 minus I. Okay, so again, I'm going to distribute the 1, which gives me a minus 6 minus I, and then I'm going to distribute the I, which gives me a minus 6I minus I squared, which is going to give me minus 6 minus 7I plus 1, which gives me a minus 5 minus 7I. So I'm going to put minus 5 minus 7I. Okay, now I'm going to add down. So the 11 minus 5 gives me 6, and the 5I minus 7i gives me minus 2i. Okay, now I know this is a 0, so I should get 0 here. So I should get 6 plus 6i next. Okay, so let's see what happens. I get 1 plus I times 6 minus 2i. Oh, hold on a second, I messed up. Oh, I totally missed, I had a 1 here, and I erased it for some reason. I think I erased it accidentally. So yeah, this is wrong. Yep, sorry about that. Let's start over. Yep, I missed that 1. So remember, I dropped the 1 and then I multiplied here. For some reason, when I was erasing, I dropped the 1, and so I only grabbed these because I noticed something wasn't right, because I shouldn't have any complex numbers. Okay, so let's try that again. Sorry about that. So I get 1 plus I, and so I'm going to take the 1, now the negative 6 minus I, and then the 11 plus 5I, and then minus 6 minus 6i. Okay, so let's start that over. So this was fine. I just need I knew I wasn't going to get the right answer. And then I looked at the solution here. So this is 1. Okay, so now I'm going to drop the 1. And again, now I'm going to get 1 plus I here. And so if I add down, now I get minus 5, right? And these cancel, so I just get minus 5. Now that looks a lot better. Okay? Now if I do this times this, I get what? I get 5, or excuse me, minus 5 minus 5i. And look at that. These i's cancel, and I get 6. All right. So now, let's see what happens. Look at that. I get this times this, and gives me 6 plus 6i. And so this gives me 0. And now look at that. This is my quotient. So now I know that what I'm ended up with. Now I went twice. That means the degree of this goes down to 2 degrees. Went down a degree here to 3rd degree, and then another degree here. So this is 2nd degree. So the leftover quotient I end up with is x squared minus 5x plus 6. Okay? So now, these are the 2 zeros. Now I can factor this. It's a quadratic, so I can factor this. What 2 factors of 6 add up to negative 5? Well, that's going to be 1 and negative 6. Or excuse me, no, negative 2 and negative 3, right? So negative 2 and negative 3 gives it to me. So it's going to be x minus 2 and x minus 3 are the 2 factors, which, again, we're not done. These are the 2 factors. So now what does that mean? The 2 zeros are 2 and 3. Those are the 2 values that make either one of these 0. So those are the zeros. So guess what? Now our final answer, the zeros are what? So I'm going to write this out. Zeros are 1 minus I, 1 plus I, 2 and 3. And those are the zeros. Okay, that's it. Again, just make sure you practice this, and you can do it on your own without looking at the solution. Have a great day.